Hello everybody, welcome to the Ultimate Scouting Show. Thank you for joining me. The NFL postseason is finally here. We are going to be going through every game, predicting who we think is going to eventually be the Super Bowl champion. Let's dive into it right now. The first game of the weekend, we have the San Francisco 49ers hosting their division rival, the Seattle Seahawks. I think that this is probably not going to be one of the more competitive matchups this week. I think the 49ers have a fantastic defense. They're really well coached with Shanahan, D'Amico Ryans as well. I think that they do win this game, but Geno Smith has had some nice moments throughout the season. I don't want to completely discount what the Seahawks have done. I did not think they were going to be a good team at all this year. I had them as the worst team in the entire NFL. So kudos to them for proving me wrong. They absolutely have. They do seem to be sputtering a little bit into the postseason here. They didn't exactly have a great performance against the Rams last week. On the other hand, the 49ers have been scorching hot. Brock Purdy has continued to deliver when called upon. This defense has been awesome. So many great weapons in Kittle, in McCaffrey, in Ayuk, in Deebo Samuel if he's able to get back as well. So I just think that the 49ers roll in this game and move on to the divisional round. On Saturday night, we have the Los Angeles Chargers going to Jacksonville to play the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jaguars just snuck into the playoffs after a really tough victory over the Titans, who are starting Josh Dobbs. Not exactly the way that you want to come into the playoffs, but luckily they get to host a playoff game here. The Chargers also did not look very good. They played their starters most of the game, and I don't know why. Austin Eckler, Justin Herbert played a good majority of the game, and obviously you lose Mike Williams as well, which I think he may be only suffering from back spasms, which would be a good thing, but I do not understand why Staley decided to keep the starters out there. For this game, I think, you've got two young quarterbacks that are going to be really exciting to watch. It's exciting to see. Ultimately, I do think that the Chargers prevail. I think they are a little bit of a better team. I think they have a little bit more experience in tough situations like this right now. I am going to pick them to win this game. Next up on Sunday, we have a Buffalo Bills versus Miami Dolphins matchup here. Another 2 versus 7. And the Dolphins are absolutely just limping into the playoffs right now. Not sure if Tua is going to be able to go, or Bridgewater. You might be starting Skylar Thompson. You might be starting someone else. It's not going to probably be an ideal situation by any means for the Dolphins. Their defense has been a bit of a problem all year. Tyreek Hill got banged up in the last game there. So, it's good for them to get into the playoffs here and save Mike McDaniel's job. Not that his job ever should have been on the line anyway, but I don't think that they have enough here against the Buffalo Bills, who I think are going to be a real threat in this playoff picture here. Josh Allen has been absolutely rolling when he's not throwing stupid interceptions. The defense has been okay. It hasn't really been as amazing as, a lot of people thought it was, but generally speaking, this has been a great team, and I think they're going to take care of business versus the Dolphins. Next, we have the Minnesota Vikings taking on the New York Giants. The Vikings hosting this one as the 3 seed, and I think that this could be a very interesting matchup. They played earlier in the season, and it came down to a last-second, victory for the Minnesota Vikings. I think that it's going to be another tight, competitive game here, and I actually have the Giants winning this one. Now, I've been pretty low on the Giants all season, but you've got to give them credit for getting into this spot. And I think that they actually match up really well with this Vikings defense in particular. The things that the Giants want to do offensively is pound the rock, use the quarterback run, get some of that short and intermediate game going with Daniel Jones, and kind of play off of all of that short game kind of stuff. Now, the Vikings play a lot of off-quarters coverage, and that means that there's going to be a lot of space underneath, and I think the Giants will be able to take advantage. Also, Brian O'Neill is out for this game. This Giants pass rush has been absolutely no joke recently. They've been one of the better pass rushing units in the NFL this season. Dexter Lawrence has been amazing, and I think that they ultimately match up really well with the Vikings and upset them in this game. Also, the NFL does reseed, so that is why the Giants have slotted in to play the Eagles there, because they are going to be the lowest seed that gets a victory in this round here for the NFC. Next up, we have the Cincinnati Bengals versus the Baltimore Ravens. These teams played last week. The Ravens pretty much rested all of their players. The Bengals did not. They had Alex Kappa go out with an injury. It looks like he will not be playing in this one. Could be a potential big deal. Lamar Jackson is the big question mark here, as is Tyler Huntley if he can't go. go. Neither one played last week. I would expect Huntley to play if Lamar cannot, but obviously that's going to make a big difference in this game. Ultimately, the Bengals have been really good at stopping the run this season. I think that their defense has been incredibly underrated. They forced a ton of turnovers versus the Ravens last week. There's a lot of emotion on both sides here. Being a divisional game, being, a fact that they just played last week as well, I think that emotion's going to be high. I think it's going to be a low-scoring defensive game, but I think that the Bengals pull this one out at home. The final matchup of Wild Card Weekend, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers hosting the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys coming into this one 12-5, the Buccaneers sputtering into the playoffs. But I actually think that the Buccaneers match up pretty well, and the Dallas Cowboys have really struggled recently. I mean, they did not look good at all against Washington, and they had stuff to play for while Washington did not. Dak Prescott has just been too inconsistent this year in key moments, and I think he is going to be under a lot of scrutiny if this team exits the playoffs early, which is actually what I have happening in my scenario here. I have Tampa Bay winning this one, and I think that, even though they're the higher seed, I do think that they're going to be an underdog in this game. You cannot count out Tom Brady. I think the offense and the defense for the Buccaneers are starting to figure things out a little bit more. And I think that ultimately Tom Brady's experience gets the win for him in this one. That means that this playoff picture in the divisional round will look like the Chiefs versus the Chargers, the Bengals versus the Bills, the Eagles versus the Giants, and the Buccaneers versus the 49ers. Let's look at the Chiefs versus Chargers first here. This has been a great matchup every time that they play. Herbert versus Mahomes is turning into a very good quarterback duel to watch. And Mahomes has won the vast majority of those duels. I think that the Chargers do put up a really good fight in this game. They have been a fun team to watch, and they usually rise to the challenge of playing Patrick Mahomes, and they make it a very entertaining game. I am ultimately going to go with the Chiefs in this one. I think the playoff experience, the fact that you've got Andy Reid, the fact that you have the NFL MVP in Patrick Mahomes on your team there, in my opinion, he should be the MVP. And I think that, right now that experience is going to carry them against a Chargers team that hasn't made the postseason with this regime, with this quarterback, and some of these core roster players there. I ultimately think that they fall a little bit short to their division rivals, the Chiefs there. Next up, we have the Bengals versus the Bills. This was the regular season matchup that we were all robbed of. Obviously, I fully support that game being canceled, but this is going to be such a fun matchup. I really do not understand why it is not held at a neutral site, but the Bengals and the Bills will be playing in Buffalo. Ultimately, I think this is going to be one of the greatest games of this playoff cycle, no doubt about it. You really could go either way in this one. I think both of these teams are absolutely top tier. There's 3 AFC teams that I really, really think deserve to make it to the AFC Championship, in the Chiefs, in the Bills, and in the Bengals. This is a very, very tough one. Ultimately, I am going to go with the Bills. It just feels like their year. It feels like everything's kind of coming together, rallying around their teammate who went into cardiac arrest on the field. It just seems like this could potentially be the year for the Bills, and I think that they ultimately win this game in the divisional round. In the NFC, we've got the Eagles versus the Giants. This is at the point where I think that the Giants' lack of talent starts to show up against an incredibly well-constructed roster that Howie Roseman has created in Philadelphia here. I think that the Eagles just have so many different ways that they can beat you. They can get after you with the pass rush. They can be really, really good in the secondary. They can kill you in the running game on offense. Jalen Hurts can launch deep balls to A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith. There's just so many options, and I think ultimately it's going to be too much for this Giants team that way overperforms expectations this year. Ultimately, I think that the Eagles are the better team, and I think that they get this win and proceed to the NFC Championship game against their division rival. Finally, we have the Buccaneers versus the 49ers. Tom Brady, obviously you cannot count him out no matter what, no matter the surrounding situation. Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, was not ever expected to play in this sort of situation this early on in his career. And yet, you've got these two quarterbacks matching up. And I am going to back the 49ers here. I've been very supportive of the 49ers all season. I was a little bit hesitant about Brock Purdy, and I'm still a little bit hesitant that, he can legitimately win a Super Bowl and match up with some of the absolute elite quarterbacks, especially in the AFC, in Josh Allen, in Patrick Mahomes, in Joe Burrow. But right now, they have everything rolling offensively. Defensively, they're the best unit in the NFL. And I think that, while the Buccaneers did a good job sneaking into the playoffs, and in this situation, getting the win versus the Cowboys, I think that the 49ers defense is a little bit too much. I think their offense continues to ground pound that rock and win this game, proceed to the NFC Championship there. So we have the Chiefs versus the Bills in the AFC Championship and the Eagles versus the 49ers in the NFC Championship. I know that's the 1 and 2 seed for both of them. I could totally see the Bengals making it. I could even see the Buccaneers maybe sneaking in. But in the AFC Championship, the Chiefs, the Bills, we've seen this matchup before. We've seen how fun it is every single time. And I'm ultimately going to pick the Bills here. They were my preseason Super Bowl pick, and I think that, it just makes sense. Like I said, everything is seemingly coming together for them at the right time. I do think that they have a little bit more of a well-constructed roster right now than Kansas City. Obviously, Mahomes is going to give you a chance in every single game, and when you have weapons like Kelsey and a head coach like Andy Reid, anything is possible. They're certainly Super Bowl favorites, but I do think that the Bills just have a little bit better constructed roster as far as their defense, as far as, everything around the quarterback. So I do think that ultimately that plays a big part in this game. I think Allen and Mahomes go back and forth over and over again, but ultimately Allen comes out victorious and sends the Buffalo Bills to the Super Bowl. In the NFC, we've got the Eagles versus the 49ers. The Eagles have been the dominant team all year in the NFC. I do think that, they're getting injured at the wrong time right now. Lane Johnson, Jalen Hurts, Avonte Maddox have all gone out with injuries. Certainly they could play in the playoffs, especially if they make it to the NFC Championship game here, but they just seem to be running out of steam a little bit when it comes to their luck. Now, the 49ers, I think, are continuing to play really well through injuries. Obviously, they're on their third string quarterback this year. I think they've proven they can be resilient. I think that, this defense is so good, and that's why I'm ultimately going to pick them over the Philadelphia Eagles here. We actually have both 2 seeds advancing to the Super Bowl here in a matchup between the Buffalo Bills and the San Francisco 49ers. For the Super Bowl, I could totally see this going either way. Both of these teams are fantastic, but ultimately, I'm going to pick the Buffalo Bills as my Super Bowl champion this year. I know it's a little bit of a basic pick, but I really think that, there's 4 or 5 teams that I really legitimately believe can win the Super Bowl here. I think that it's the Bengals, the Bills, and the Chiefs in the AFC, and really the Eagles and the 49ers in the NFC. Any of those other teams that, if they made it there, I would be quite surprised. Those 5 teams, to me, are the 5 best by far, but I ultimately am going to go with the Buffalo Bills to win the Super Bowl here over the San Francisco 49ers. That would be an amazing game if it did end up happening, and that is what I am going to pick here. And that's going to do it here. Please, if you like this video, hit that subscribe button down below. So close to 400 subscribers. It would be awesome if we could get over that. Please hit that like button while you're down there. Helps support the channel, pushes this video out to other NFL fans just like you. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks. Bye.